What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about an Indiana Jones and the Great Circle sequel. So there's been some talk online, primarily actually from a Variety article that's kind of going over several different things. Indiana Jones just in general, also Call of Duty, kind of like an Xbox piece. But one of the biggest things to kind of come out of that was talk with Lucasfilm's president and just talk about, okay, well, what could we see? Like, what's the future hold, if things go well. So to boil it down, and it's actually pretty short, we can get through this pretty quickly. The situation is basically like, if it performs well, they're very much open to other things. They talk about that, there's room in between these movies, and that this game is obviously set in between two movies. So there's just, in general, room to explore more stories if they want to, and they find that, I think the key quote is very interesting, right? They find that idea very interesting. So, they do lead that paragraph talking about like sales and talking about success and things, and this one's going to be tough to track, tough to monitor, and that's the downside with Game Pass. The bright side is you get I would say a pretty darn good game, one of the best games of the year in my own personal opinion. And if you have Game Pass, you get it for technically free. Yes, you pay every month, but you get it for free. That's the pro. The con is it kind of hides numbers. Like, you can see it on Steam, and it's doing, I don't even know what you want to say on Steam. It's doing fine, okay, sitting at like that 12 or so thousand, I think, is like its peak concurrent. I mean, that's not amazing. You had a lot of other games this year beat it, but at the same time, what are you expecting? And it's not, I don't mean that as a dig actually to anybody. I mean it as a legitimate question. What not what you are expecting of it, what are they expecting of it, right? Do they want it to sell 2 million and to do, like, what's the split? Because most people are going to play this game on Game Pass. Like, just flat, let's cut through the BS. Most people are not going to buy this game. That doesn't mean everybody, and that doesn't mean it's going to sell 0 units or even like 100,000 units. Most. So if it's 10 million people play this game, is it 8 million on Game Pass, and is it 2 million sales? Is it 1 million sales and 9 million on Game Pass? Is it, maybe obviously it could be lower than that in terms of like an overall total. It makes the conversations harder because you don't actually know. From a personal perspective here, though, too, like, there absolutely could be sequels to this, and I would absolutely want sequels to this, not to spoil it, but I just think it fits so seamlessly. It's an adventure. It's a movie on its own, and you do have to be careful with like characters and stuff, and I did see people talk about this, I think, in my review video, where it's like, with the girl and Indy getting the girl and all that stuff, and it's like, well, you got to be careful, because it's like you can't take the characters too hard, like on a left turn, right? Because it's like, well, they got to get back on the road for like the next movie that would appear in however many years in that life, right, in the canon. So that is one thing you do have to be careful with, and it's something, like Star Wars has worked really well because it's as big as life itself, right? It's as big as really you want it to be. So when you think of like the Clone Wars, there's literally like thousands of stories you could tell there if you're really trying to force it, which Star Wars has also done that too, really try to force things in, like, say, just a couple years or just like right up against each other, and that often does lead to problems, at least lore, at least like that kind of side, and some people might not care about that, some people might, but to me, that's really the only downside to doing it. I love the game. I think there should be more of them, and it wouldn't upset me at all if that team, Machine Games, was just kind of a back and forth Wolfenstein, Indie, Wolfenstein, or a 2-studio team, and they were kind of cranking both of these out at the same time. They're pretty different, so it's not like, I mean, maybe you could handle, maybe that makes it harder, maybe like you can't do 2 at the same time because they're so radically different, or maybe that makes it easier, right? I don't know for sure, but definitely good news. I would say just the quote that we got today, just talking about, that it would be interesting. It's interesting, and that there is more room, basically, in the universe to do more of these games. I don't want to read too much into it because, you could read into it actually a couple different ways, or it might not mean actually anything. However, if you were trying to say, like, you're done, or like, because I don't know when this article was, like, when were they talking to these people? I mean, they did talk about Indiana Jones, like, as a game, and it kind of being out there. So, if it did terrible, or if it was doing terrible, I feel like the response, like, if a game does bad and you ask about a sequel, I feel like the answer is just different. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, well, maybe just now's not the right time, or eventually we would maybe do more of these, but just not right now. Like, again, I don't want to read into it too much, but that's I feel like the answer and like the actual wording would be different If the answer was no, I feel like it leans more towards yes. So I will absolutely take more of these games. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.